Amazing how quickly the Penn State secondary is filling up for the Nittany Lions in the class of 2027. They had no commitments about a month ago, and now here they are with, I'm not going to say the inn is full in the backfield, but they're doing a great job with Deion Broomfield and Terry Smith putting together their class, and we are here to talk about the latest one of those with Sean Fitz, reporter and publisher for Blue White Illustrated. Fitz, we're going back to New Jersey. Those New Jersey ties coming back once again for the Nittany Lions. The new staff making no bones about it, trying to get back into New Jersey. So who are we talking about today?
Yeah, Penn State making a concerted effort to get back into Jersey, especially North Jersey, where there's a lot of that talent that resides. That Penn State's been very hit and miss over the years, but one school they have had success at is St. Joe's Regional. Augie Hoffman's there. He does a fantastic job, and the latest commitment comes from Montvale, Jonathan Galette. The name sounds familiar, nephew of Junior Galette, former pass rusher in the NFL, but a bit of a different build here. 5'11", 170. We have him as a safety. But he's going to project all over. I think he could probably play high school corner, but we're looking nickel type safety here. With Galette, he's a 3-star prospect by all 3 services. He does have a legitimate industry ranking that puts him as the number 56 safety nationally and the number 14 prospect in New Jersey. And again, there's a lot of talent up there in North Jersey, and he's one of the top ones for a program that won a state championship last year.
Yeah, just a quick correction if you're watching on the YouTube channel. That graphic was created before ESPN actually gave him a ranking. So he is now 567 and, as Fitz mentioned, 56 overall and 14th in safeties ranking and in the state of New Jersey. So those numbers are roughly accurate, but not as accurate as they should be for the time of his commitment. Apologize for that, but doing a lot of prep work so we can get a lot of these done. If you're watching, Penn State's had a lot of commitments here in the spring, and Galette is the next one. So you mentioned the relationship with the school being one that Penn State has been able to foster over the years. How did this one come together? Deion Broomfield is going to be his position coach, as he's a safety despite being 5'11", 170, and we'll show you exactly why, and you're not going to be surprised when you see the tape. But Fitz, how has this relationship, how is the story of him getting to Penn State gone so far?
Yeah, so going back to North Jersey, and I think this is an important thing, you look at guys that pop up onto the radar very early. Now, Jonathan Galette's offer list looks really, really good. Ohio State's on there, Tennessee. You've got a bunch of schools that are, you would associate with big time offers. Michigan's in there, but that's not always the full story here. It came down to Penn State and Wisconsin. So Wisconsin had him out for an unofficial visit after he visited Penn State last week. So that's kind of the main contenders there. So this is a guy, I don't want to say that his recruitment faded a little bit after those early offers, but it wasn't, how that all played out maybe like you thought it would a year ago. Penn State's been after him for a while now with both staffs. He came in and visited earlier this year. And I think he worked his way up to Deion Broomfield's safety board in just by his versatility, right? You talked about it before. And it's just one that's always kind of made sense. He was back on campus on April 7th. He had official visits set up to Penn State and Wisconsin. And really that's what it came down to. I actually thought, over the last week that Wisconsin had taken control. This is one of those guys that Penn State, I think, wanted, but at the same time, maybe didn't want from a financial perspective as much as Wisconsin was willing to go. So actually Ryan switched his pick for Galette to Wisconsin based on some things that we heard late in the week. And then all of a sudden switched it back because we heard things that worked for Penn State. It's just a really interesting juxtaposition. And, I haven't talked to Galette to get kind of the full story here, but when we say that these guys are making these decisions based off of money, I think there's other things in play here. So you think about how much more would it have taken for Wisconsin to lure him away out of region, flight for his parents and all that kind of stuff. So I think there's a risk benefit analysis. If you're a financial guy, wink, wink, T Frank, that's a nice little segue here, to how much does it mean to play in your region? How much is it worth to you to be a guy in your region? And I think Galette maybe came back around and was like, okay, well, even though the dollar amount might be more, there's enough here to keep me in the region, enough here to keep me with Penn State. And I think that's kind of how that one played out.
It's amazing the amount of money you need to build wealth, especially if you're going to have wealth early in your life, is not as much as you might think. Now, more is always more when it comes to money. There is no, as we've seen, there is no end to it if you know how to do things right. But for most of us, you need to know how to do more with less. So before we get to that, first like the video, subscribe here to the Blue White Illustrated YouTube channel if you're celebrating Penn State getting another commitment and you're enjoying the conversation about Jonathan Galette. So just if you enable notifications and you subscribe, you'll always be informed when these commitments break, because there's going to still be a lot of them, despite the fact that we got 10 or close to that here at some point. We're in the almost double digits at this point. And I'm saying that intentionally because I don't know. And, I think we're at that point. But it's good for me to be vague about that at this point, if you kind of catch my drift of when we're recording this. Right. So let's talk about AJ Freedom Financial. In football and in finance, having a strong game plan makes all the difference. AJ Freedom Financial helps individuals build personalized financial strategies that align with their goals, timelines, and risk tolerance. From investment guidance and retirement planning to 401k rollovers, HSA assistance, and legacy and wealth strategies, AJ Freedom Financial offers thoughtful, one-on-one support backed by industry experience and a commitment to transparency. Whether you're starting to invest, planning for retirement, or you simply want a second look at your financial approach, AJ Freedom Financial is here to help you make informed, confident decisions. Schedule a no-obligation consultation today at www.ajffi.com. Call 866-383-6899 or email info@ajffi.com. Again, that's ajffi.com. Call 866-383-6899 or email info@ajffi.com. AJ Freedom Financial, helping Nittany Lions fans plan for what's next. Securities and investment advisory services offered through Gradient Securities, LLC. Arden Hills, Minnesota, 866-991-1539. Member FINRA, SIPC. Gradient Securities, LLC, and SEC Registered Investment Advisor offers investment advisory services under the DBA of Gradient Wealth Management. Gradient Securities, LLC, and its advisors do not render tax, legal, or accounting services. Insurance products and services offered through AJ Freedom Financial. AJ Freedom Financial and Freedom Financial Insurance, LLC are not affiliated with Gradient Securities, LLC. There are certain guys that I think everyone likes because they're big, strong, physical, talented, they're fast. You can just see, oh, this dude is a football player. And then there are guys that people, and this is not to sound haughty or snooty or anything, but like if you love the game and you love the nuance and details and the things that you don't have to really like to like football, but like if you know it, you love it, then Jonathan Galette is your kind of guy. We mentioned 5'11", 170. He's a football film watcher's favorite because he is a strong safety. I'd say he's probably a linebacker stuffed inside of a nickel corner. That's kind of his skill set. He is, I think he's got good speed. He can move around the field really well. I don't see any inhibitions in his, or inabilities, in his movement patterns. Maybe not the most explosive, maybe not the fastest guy in the world, but this guy can play. And fearless. Fitz, the way we were describing him is this dude does not care what happens to his body. He's a nickel corner that can blitz. He's a safety that can cover. And he is a guy that I think can play a bunch of multiple different positions on the field. You don't see him a lot in coverage for his high school because they use him so often to get near the football to have him make plays. And that's really, I think, the one thing I'd say that really limits the projection of him to the next level is that you don't see as many coverage plays as you'd want for a defensive back. But if you're saying a defensive playmaker, this dude is making plays all over the box. He's making plays in coverage. He does have plays in coverage. It's just not a large amount of those. So if you like feisty football players, I, as you may imagine, am always a fan of the undersized defensive back that can knock out a guy cold. He's your kind of guy then. So I'm a huge fan of Jonathan Galette, and I think he's going to be a good safety prospect for Penn State that could play either of those positions. But if he could be, I think it would be good for him to be a free safety that is plus in the box rather than a strong safety that is good in the box and is a little bit undersized.
For what we've seen so far from D'Anton Lynn's defense, is this a fit for that nickel spot? Is this a spot that, or is he a fit for what they're asking Zion Tracy to do, which is essentially be, that third safety, kind of when he needs to be, and then, just kind of flip out and be all over the place. It's very interesting to me to see how this has come together, because if you remember the class of 2026, the very end, they brought in Bryson Williams and Christian Askew, both guys, 6'4", 190, like very clearly not Jonathan Galette. But you've also got Jameson Patton, 6'2". It's just, we talked earlier this week on the show about the defensive end, like the split between the defensive end room with the big defensive ends and then the designated pass rushers. Well, you look at the safety room and it's like really, really big, rangy guys. And then there's like these little ball hawks that, you could
Yeah.
probably throw Marcus Neal in there. He's listed at 6'1", 218. Is he 6'1"? I don't know if he's quite there.
It's
Amarian
close.
Davis, who came over from Boston College, he's 5'11", 197, and he weighs more than some of the 6'4" guys. Like, he's got some muscle to him. And I think you could probably put Jonathan Galette in that mold of an Amarian Davis, because you look at the way that Penn State's recruited that position over the years, and they've really valued length. They've really valued, that ability to be rangy in the secondary, and they've had success with it, no doubt. But it's just different body types. So is Galette maybe more of that Jeremiah Cooper, who has played corner, is out for spring right now, but has played corner, has been in that role where he's been a flexible guy, versatile guy in the backfield, or like an Amarian Davis that they're using in that role as well. So to me, it's just kind of another position on defense that doesn't have defined roles, but does have separate little categories where you've got these big rangy guys, and then you've got these Hulk, these hitters. And I'm very curious to see how that plays out in the next couple of years.
That is the one characteristic that they have to have across the board. Is it doesn't matter which one of those guys it is, small or big, they will hit and they are violent. And it doesn't matter like what position they end up at. Those are two skills that these Iowa State transfers and these initial commitments that you've gotten under Matt Campbell, Dion Broomfield, and now under D'Anton Lynn and Terry Smith, they all have that commonality. And Terry Smith's corners were never afraid to tackle. Really, I mean, Joey Porter Jr. is a very talented football player. Maybe he's the one guy that was like, I'm going to opt out of being like aggressive as a tackler.
He had some other qualities that made him okay, I guess.
Yeah, he had some of those valuable skills that you were going to be like, that's fine. I don't care. To me, he reminds me, Jonathan Galette is the inverse of Karan Caesar, where he is a safety that could maybe moonlight in the nickel, and Caesar is a corner that could moonlight at nickelback if you wanted him to, and provides that physicality. So you've got a lot of guys that have position fluid natures on the back end, so they can fit into and swap out wherever you want them to, so that from game to game, if you do want to play a guy like Galette at safety and you want to have a little bit more aggressiveness at that nickel position, then you're not sacrificing, I think, as much coverage ability as you might be if you're putting a 6'4" linebacker out there, or if you're putting out one of your bigger safeties that you do have concerns about. Maybe if you get a matchup problem with a slot receiver, I do think Galette has the opportunity to maybe not cover every receiver in the slot, but a lot of receivers in the slot. So it's the versatility to me, and then the non-negotiable of a guy that's tackling. I would even say, if there's one thing I would say about Galette, his tackling is a little dangerous because he will spear people, and that is both a penalty and dangerous for his health. He will just lower his head like a triceratops and go right into people. And so, like, that's one thing I'd like to see him get his head up and see what he's striking, because he's going to be a very good football player, and I want him to have a long career.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. There is some reckless disregard there, which is fun for us to watch, but hopefully that is brought under control. If you look, I blocked a punt, I believe, in the state title game, or maybe the state semis. But he's got some, hey, I'm just going to lay out and go get it type of mindset to his game, and I like to see that. Like, there's so much that you can learn on special teams film, just from the mindset of the player, and I think that this is one where you put on and if you're on the YouTube channel right now, that is the play that we're showing right now. It came off the edge, unblocked, yes, but like full reckless disregard for. He made that decision pretty early that he was going to be able to get to the ball, and just went for it, and he got it. So a lot to like there in terms of what he can do when you're asking him to be a freewheeling safety. I think that maybe that's a way to go about it, freewheeling nickel safety type guy. But he's going to have to grow into it. He's going to have to get bigger, obviously. At 170, sure. It's probably a redshirt guy. But if you're looking at your defensive back class, this is a guy that certainly you can toss that in, and he can play football pretty soon, from a skill level based perspective.
All right. Well, we'll be back with more of these from Blue White Illustrated next time Penn State gets a commitment. So make sure you subscribe here to the Blue White Illustrated YouTube channel, enable notifications. And if you want a deep dive on all these players, you want to get more information, you want to hear from the coaches, we do all of that over at BlueWhiteIllustrated.com, and it's 50% off right now for spring football. And that is not going on forever, because spring football is almost over. So make sure you subscribe right now, because you get 4 sites for the price of half of one. because you get us, you get the national coverage teams from Rivals and On3, and you get a year of access to The Athletic included. So there's all kinds of great content for you if you love college football, pro football, the NFL draft, recruiting, any of that stuff. And of course, we'll be here for you to talk about the next commitment when it happens from Blue White Illustrated.